Today I'm sitting here with John Moore. Hello in Missouri.
Good morning, Alexandra.
It's early morning now in Missouri, USA.
It is, yes.
But thank you that you can speak with me, and we are going to speak with John Moore about NIBIRU Flyby and the preparedness. And you are going to come to Europe, to Central Europe, to Prague, and speak at the conference From Illusion to Reality on 22nd of July.
I am.
Now, and you are going also speak about false flag operation. But could you please introduce yourself first?
Thank you, I will. Well, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. In 1967, I enlisted in the U.S. Army at 19 years old, where I became an intelligence analyst. I did a tour in Vietnam with psychological warfare, came back to the States and finished up my Army experience with U.S. Army Special Forces. Left the Army, got my degree as a paralegal, and I spent most of my adult life in trial preparation for criminal matters, including many homicides and civil matters as well. I've been a radio talk show host since 1995. I now do a daily radio show Monday through Friday on Republic Broadcasting out of Austin, Texas. I first found out about NIBIRU in the late spring, early summer of 2000, and I've spent a lot of time, many hundreds of hours, locating witnesses, taking statements, and of course doing my research to the point where I did my DVD that you have there, Alexandra, Global Warming, What the Government Isn't Telling You.
Can I show it now?
Please do. There it is.
Double DVD, and it's from the year 2008, and the update is from 2010, but it's like if you did it yesterday.
It's still very current, yes.
Yeah.
And well, that's my bio, and like I said a moment ago, Alexandra, what I've got a couple of pieces of original work. One is locating and debriefing U.S. Navy veterans, especially U.S. Navy submarine veterans, regarding the classified briefings they attended beginning in 1979. And without exception, Alexander, all these men were told that during their lifetimes, these oceans would come out of their basins, flooding all coastal areas worldwide. They were also told that the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks here in the United States is one of the known safe havens, and many thousands of them have moved to the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks. Another part of my research has to do with locating images of continents with new coastlines in television shows and movies. We've now got about 10 or 12 television shows and movies showing images of continents with new coastlines. It's a fascinating area, going back at least to 1955 and possibly to 1954. I need to verify that, but definitely back to 1955, 62 years ago. It's an amazing little project and a lot of fun, Alexandra.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I shall show your map here that you are going to speak about more, or
I will be.
Yeah.
I will be.
Yeah. Okay.
At the Navy briefings, the men were all shown a map, and the map you held up is our recreation. I worked with 3 veterans who saw the actual map, and we recreated that map, and it's on my DVD. It shows the East Coast, the Atlantic Coast of the United States, the Gulf Coast of the United States, and the Pacific Coast, all being damaged with flooding, and a new inland sea where the Mississippi River is, splitting the country in two, east-west at the Mississippi River. Now, these areas flooded, Alexander, is where basically 70 to 80% of the American population lives. Their homes, their places of business, their schools, their hospitals, everything they need to survive will be underwater. And it will be a disaster, to say the least. And this will happen worldwide, of course, not just the United States.
Mm. Yeah, and you are preparing for it?
I've been preparing for it since the year 2000, and I'm pretty well set up here, and I have a local preparedness group we work with. And we have monthly training, and then we have social events every week. And it's fun getting to know each other and learn each other's skills and be able to prepare together. And you need a team, Alexander. You can't do this by yourself. It's just too much.
Mm-hmm. And this NIBIRU flyby occurs every 3,600 years?
That's our belief. There's some there's not 100% agreement among the scientists looking into this, but we do know this for a fact, that every 3,600 years, the civilizations on this planet go through very dramatic changes and basically come to an end. And that's, you can research, anybody can research this and find it out. That 3,600 years ago, 7,200 years ago, and so forth, major civilizations came to an end and new civilizations took their place. That's well documented, Alexandra.
Yeah, and how come that we don't learn that in schools?
Well, it's not taught. The information is there if you want to seek it out, but it's not taught. And mainstream archaeology has two jobs, Alexandra. One is to recover ancient technology. The other is to keep us from finding out about it. And of course, a lot of what archaeology does is to support the flawed, non-existent theory of Darwinian evolution. There is not now, never has been, any evidence that one species has evolved to become a different species. That theory will never be proven because it can't be proven. And a lot of what archaeology does is an attempt to preserve that flawed theory.
Mm. And do I understand that the people who told you are mostly from intelligence or military?
Right. Well, I have contacts in military intelligence, in the military, and in private government agencies, and we all communicate with each other privately and exchange information privately.
So they know, but they don't tell us.
Well, they're not going to jeopardize their paycheck and their pension to tell people what they know. That's not going to happen, Alexander.
Mm. And could you describe a little bit what will happen when the flyby occurs?
Okay, well, we'll do that. It's somewhat documented in the Bible when the most recent passage was when Moses was leaving Egypt, and all the water on the planet, surface water, turned red. That's from the iron oxide dust that travels with the Nibiru. One of the things that Emanuel Velikovsky learned in his research is that it was not just the Nile River, it was all the water on the planet that turned red during that flyby. We expect to have 200-mile-an-hour winds for at least a day. That will be the jet stream coming down to the surface of the planet, winds from 150 to 200 miles an hour. I'm not sure what that is in kilometers offhand, but very damaging winds. We expect there will be major earthquakes all over the planet, 9- and 10-point earthquakes, as well as volcanoes erupting at the same time. And of course, the pole shift. The information I have, Alexander, is a 45-degree pole shift, which is massive. Typically, these pole shifts are in a range of 15 to 20 degrees. 45 degrees is a huge pole shift. The new North Pole will be in Siberia, which will mean most of North America will be much warmer than it is now. And we believe much of Europe will be warmer than it is now as well. And that's a good thing. Warmer temperatures is a good thing. And of course, the flooding. When the pole shift happens, we will have worldwide flooding of all coastal areas, at least 100 meters high, possibly 150 to 200 meters high, depending on where you are. That will devastate where 75, 85% of the population lives, will be wiped out and underwater.
Mm.
Rocks. Oh, we need to talk about the rocks. There will be rocks hitting Earth. Rocks the size of trucks, rocks the size of houses, hitting Earth and causing damage as well. That will be part of it, Alexandra.
And the rocks, are they coming from like upstairs, or is it angled right into the windows? Or
Well, there'll be different trajectories. They won't necessarily be coming straight down. Typically, they'll be less than 90 degrees. You described 90 degrees, which would be straight down, but typically they would be more like that coming at us. 45 degrees or 35 or 55, different angles. Not 90. There'll be some 90-degree hits, but it'll be a variety.
And the dust, do you have any information, like should we cover nose and during long?
You don't want to be outside breathing the red oxide dust. It's not necessarily toxic, but you don't want that stuff in your lungs and in your eyes, no. So you want to, if you are outside during that, you want to have goggles and some kind of respirator.
And what do you expect the farm soil or the land, when can we grow like potatoes again?
That's a good question. Iron oxide won't necessarily make the ground toxic. In fact, a little iron might be good for the soil. So having a garden area that's covered up might be a good idea with plastic or tarpaulins. That might be a good idea, or of course a greenhouse would be a good thing also.
What do you think about the nuclear power plant? How safe is it?
The hazards to the nuclear power plants will be shutting them down safely. If they're near a coastal area, they're going to be flooded like Fukushima was. Nuclear power plants are going to be a big problem. Hopefully they can be shut down and taken offline safely. If not, it'll cause radiation problems over much of the planet. Of course it would.
Do you have any information how long time before the pole shift we should shut down the nuclear power plants?
Well, as soon as it becomes obvious what's going on, the power plants should begin their shutdown procedures. Here in the States, they provide about 15% of our power. We can get along without them. Other parts of the world, they use more nuclear power than we do. But the smart thing to do would be to start shutting them down as soon as it's obvious that NIBIRU is nearby.
And what do you believe about fires? Can wooden things start to burn suddenly, and explosions, gasoline?
Well, fires are always an issue. I'm not sure that there's going to be any more fires than normal. The problem will be putting them out. When an emergency services can no longer respond, once a fire starts, it's going to be difficult to put it out.
You said about the level above sea. That, did you say 200 feet at least?
100 meters would be 300 feet.
Oh.
At least 300 feet.
At least 300 feet.
Yeah, it'll vary depending on where you are, but I tell people 600 feet to be safe.
200 meters, yeah. 200 meters, you said. Yeah,
that's a lot of water. There'll be, what's going to happen, Alexander? There'll be a slosh, a wave that might be 200 meters high, but then there'll be a new sea level which won't be that high. The new sea level may be 100 meters, or maybe 75 meters above the current level. It'll vary depending on where you are on the planet.
I usually live in Sweden, and for example, in Denmark, the highest natural point is 170 meters above sea level, I believe, in Denmark.
Most of the people in Denmark live very close to the ocean, don't they?
Yeah, it's like their
homes, their businesses, hospitals, schools, that'll all be underwater. The higher altitudes in Denmark is where there's very few buildings and very few people.
And what do you believe about the infrastructure, or what do you believe about internet and telephone, mobile phone net, and banking system?
Well, that'll all be gone. Once the power system goes down, everything else goes with it. The governments and military will still have communications, but civilians will not have access to that. Ham radio operators may still be operating in different parts of the world. That may be the only communication we have for any distance. It would be ham radio, amateur radio.
At the conference, you will speak first. You will speak in the morning, a lecture like 1.5 hours, but later in the afternoon you will speak together with Sandra Fecht and me also about the NIBIRU preparedness and learn. Sandra will speak especially about the psychological preparedness, and you will speak about your experiences in your community and
Right.
how much water, for example, do you believe we need to have per person?
How much what per person?
How much water we should?
Oh, water. Well, you should have a supply of water. Having liters of water stored up would be smart, but what you need is access to a spring or a well. Would be the best. A lake or a creek or a river would be the next best. That would have to be purified before you could drink it, of course. Storing, if you live in an urban area and can only store up water, by all means do so. But you need access to a source of water that is basically unlimited. That would be the best possible thing. A creek or a stream or a spring or a well would be the best.
And how about the energy supply? Are you considering free energy device to buy something, or?
Well, there's lots of ways to create electricity. You can do it with solar power, wind power, steam power, water power, horses walking in a circle. Lots of ways to make electricity. I don't know if we need to be getting into the details of that. You do what each person is going to have their own situation. If you've got a creek or a river where you can make hydroelectric, that's great. Wind power is fine. Solar power is great. Steam power works fine. Whatever works for you, Alexander, that's what people need to be doing.
But for example, solar power, we should take it inside for the period when the storms are coming, or?
Well, that would be smart to eliminate any damage to your solar panels. Most people aren't going to have very many solar panels to do very much. Maybe charge up batteries for some radios, maybe have a couple of light bulbs. Enough solar power to even run a refrigerator is a lot of solar power for most people most of the time.
And what do you believe about the time for the flyby?
Well, I hear different reports, Alexandra. I've heard from you September of 2017. I'm hearing from other people, maybe 18 months out. Placing dates on this is difficult, and many people have done it. And I don't publicly talk about a date. I haven't yet. If I have a date that I can stand behind with my private sources, I'll put it out. So far, I don't have that date.
I remember that Sergeant Major, or retired Sergeant Major Robert Dean, has said 2008, that not later than 2017, but so it's quite a high position, isn't it, Sergeant Major?
Well, Sergeant Major is the highest enlisted rank in the U.S. Army, and men in those situations, they come in contact with a lot of individuals that have what we might call privileged information, classified information. So I don't know the Sergeant Major. I don't know what his access is. but he may very well have access to people in lettered agencies that know about these matters. That may be the case.
Mm. Have you heard about that? Like if we go back, you said that the previous flyby, Nibiru flyby was Exodus.
Right. That's
Yeah.
the most recent one, yes.
Yeah, and the before is Noah flood.
Noah's flood was one before that, and that was a worldwide flood, not just the Middle East.
Yeah.
That was 7,200 years ago, and every culture on the planet has a flood story from about the same time.
Mm. Have you thought about you said that you are Christian, so you have read the Bible, and what I was thinking about is Hamburg in Germany. It's the world leaders are going to meet there, or at least some of them, and they have built there a building.
Okay.
Which look, I don't know if you can see it. The name is Alp Philharmonic Hall, and it looks like it's very tall building, and the ceiling look like waves, water waves, and Hamburg is very close to the sea.
Well, Hamburg is a seaport, right?
Yeah. So they will get the flooding.
Of course.
Yeah, and have you thought about? It was something that's called the curse of Ham, or in the Bible.
What about the curse of Ham?
It's Noah's son, one of Noah's son, was cursed, or not cursed, but his offspring got cursed. And what I mean, this town's name is Hamburg, and they built there a building shortly before the flood that looks like the waves of the flood. So I was thinking it was like a revenge. Sounds like revenge for me for the curse of Ham, but it was just what I was thinking. It's
Okay.
Hamburg, and the world leaders are there in July 7th and 8th, and quite shortly before many people believe.
Is this a G20 meeting?
Yeah, believe that the flood will come, so they meet there, but the people still don't know anything about Nibiru flyby.
No,
Yeah.
very few people know about this.
What do you believe in the United States? How many percent do you believe know about Nibiru?
I would say 3 to 4%, maybe.
It's less here in Europe, I believe. Yeah.
3 to 4% is optimistic, Alexandra. It may only be 1 or 2.
Yeah. And you will also, if I switch, you will also speak about false flag operation, because you, as a 19-year-old, you were part of, you have heard about the war.
I knew more about the war than almost anybody. Yes.
Yeah. So that the people in the military knows about what's going to happen. So many conflicts are actually false flag operations.
Well, they're illegal. Started on a false premise. That's true.
Yeah.
Our wars in the United States have been. The only legal war since 1812 has been the Korean War. We had treaty obligations to defend Korea, but we had every war the United States has been in since 1812. The Civil War, Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, and Vietnam were all illegal wars.
And how are you feeling, if we say back to Nibiru? I mean, as a normal man, you have I guess, feelings or instincts to help others, those who are weaker, children, women. So, and now you know about NIBIRU Flyby, and you cannot help more than you spread the information as much as possible, but you cannot take care about people the way maybe you would like to. How do you feel about the governments, and how are your feelings? I mean, if you understand what I mean.
In terms of my being able to help people, or the government being able to help people?
The feeling like betrayal that...
Well, we talked about this before, Alexandra. It's a complex matter. And when I first came to understand this was real 17 years ago, I was angry at first. I've since come to realize that something of this magnitude, the government is limited what they can do. And it's a very harsh reality to understand that. But you cannot duplicate what it takes to save everybody in the interior of the country, in the safe areas. It simply can't be done. They're going to maintain what appears to be normal activity until the last minute. They'll impose martial law when they have no choice, and most people in the worldwide are going to die as a consequence when this thing kicks in.
But what do you think if we could gain all money back, like single persons, for pensions and all that belongs to us, really, and would be able to move temporarily to some friends in another country? I could take for sure myself at least 100 people from, for example, Sweden or so here, who can survive otherwise.
Well, Alexander, you save the ones you can. We can't save everybody. That can't be done. If you could save 100 people, that would be wonderful. It will be a very small percentage of people that are saved.
Yeah, but if people could get their money, maybe with their own power, or could find a place in a completely different country, or...
Well, we're encouraging people to find a safe haven. I talk a lot about hobby farms where people can grow all the food that they need for themselves in a safe area, away from cities at a high altitude. That's a good choice if you can do that, and I encourage people to do so.
Mm. How do you believe buildings, stone buildings, how much damage will it be?
Heavily built stone buildings may lose their roof, but you can replace a roof. Earthquakes are another issue. A 9-point earthquake will bring down most structures or severely damage them. Mm-hmm. Depends on where you are, Alexander. We don't know how bad it's going to be in different places.
Yeah, so it's good to have simple things like shovel and gloves and...
Shovels, gloves, hard hats, picks, all those things. Heavy equipment if you got it. Obviously a backhoe would be great.
Yeah. I wonder if we could do some follow-up, maybe some 10 days later, and gather the questions from...
Let's do that. 10 days from now, sure.
10 days from now, okay. So I will send you an email and remind you.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Alexander.
Have a good day.
I will, you too.
Today I'm sitting here with John Moore. Hello in Missouri.
Good morning, Alexandra.
It's early morning, you know, in Missouri, USA.
It is, yes.
but thank you that you can speak with me, and we are going to speak with John Moore about NIBIRU Flyby and the preparedness. And you are going to come to Europe, to Central Europe, to Prague, and speak at the conference From Illusion to Reality on 22nd of July.
I am
now, and you are
current, yes.
Yeah.
And well, that's my bio, and like I said a moment ago, Alexandra, what I've got a couple of pieces of original work. One is locating and debriefing U.S. Navy veterans, especially U.S. Navy submarine veterans, regarding the classified briefings they attended beginning in 1979. And without exception, Alexandra, all these men were told that during their lifetimes, these oceans would come out of their basins, flooding all coastal areas worldwide. They were also told that the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks here in the United States is one of the known safe havens, and many thousands of them have moved to the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks. Another part of my research has to do with locating images of continents with new coastlines in television shows and movies. We've now got about 10 or 12 television shows and movies showing images of continents with new coastlines. It's a fascinating area, going back at least to 1955 and possibly to 1954. I need to verify that, but definitely back to 1955, 62 years ago. It's an amazing little project and a lot of fun, Alexandra.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I shall show your map here that you are going to speak about more, or are going also speak about false flag operation. But could you please introduce yourself first?
Thank you, I will. Well, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. In 1967, I enlisted in the U.S. Army at 19 years old, where I became an intelligence analyst. I did a tour in Vietnam with psychological warfare, came back to the States and finished up my Army experience with U.S. Army Special Forces. Left the Army, got my degree as a paralegal, and I spent most of my adult life in trial preparation for criminal matters, including many homicides and civil matters as well. I've been a radio talk show host since 1995. I now do a daily radio show Monday through Friday on Republic Broadcasting out of Austin, Texas. I first found out about NIBIRU in the late spring, early summer of 2000, and I've spent a lot of time, many hundreds of hours, locating witnesses, taking statements, and of course doing my research to the point where I did my DVD that you have there, Alexandra, Global Warming, What the Government Isn't Telling You.
Can I show it now?
Please do. There it is.
Double DVD, and it's from the year 2008, and the update is from 2010, but it's like if you did it yesterday. It's still very